Welcome to Applied DeepSeek AI 25 Practical Projects for AI Developers, a hands on course designed to help you master AI powered applications using DeepSeek R1. Whether you are an AI enthusiast, developer, or researcher, this course provides practical implementation of natural language processing NLP, automation, chatbots, coding assistants, and business intelligence tools, all powered by DeepSeek AI. Now, this course will guide you from setup to real world applications, ensuring you gain the necessary skills to build AI driven solutions efficiently. The course objective is that by the end of this course, you will be able to set up and configure DeepSeek AI on your local machine, understand the capabilities of DeepSeek AI and how it differs from other AI models, develop 25 AI powered projects covering NLP, automation, chatbots, developer tools, and business applications, deploy AI driven applications for personal and professional use, optimize AI performance, and enhance efficiency for real world implementation. Now, who is this course for? This course is designed for AI developers and engineers to build production ready AI powered applications, for data scientists to learn to leverage DeepSeek AI for text processing and business insights, for content creators and marketers to automate text generation and summarization, to chatbot and virtual assistant builders to create AI powered assistants for various industries, for business analysts and researchers to use AI to analyze reports, news, and trends, and also for tech enthusiasts and students to gain hands on experience with open source AI model. So, in short, no prior AI experience is required, just the enthusiasm to learn and experiment. Let's look at the prerequisites. Before starting this course, you should have basic Python knowledge, loops, functions, and API requests. If you don't, there is a video at the end of this section which is available for you to learn a little bit of Python to get used to this course. Familiarity with JSON and REST APIs for integrating DeepSeek AI. And we will be walking you through these process. Basic understanding of NLP concepts. This is not mandatory but helpful. A system with at least 8 GB RAM for running your AI models efficiently. And most of these laptops or computers these days come with at least 8 GB RAM. And enthusiasm to experiment with AI powered applications. Now, if you're new to Python or AI concepts, as I mentioned, don't worry, we will provide step by step guidance and hands on coding exercises to help you get started at the end of this section, and also all the projects we will go through each and every line of code. Next, the course structure and learning approach. This course is structured into 5 sections, each focusing on real world AI projects. Section 1 is based on AI, text processing, and NLP, where we will be building tools like text summarizer, grammar checker, sentiment analyzer, and AI content generator. Our section 2 is chatbots and virtual assistants, where we will be creating chatbots for customer support, legal documentation, medical diagnostics, and e-commerce. Our section 3 will be AI for automation and productivity, where we will be automating tasks like email responses, resume generation, meeting summaries, and PDF text extraction. Our section 4 will cover AI for developers and coding, where we develop tools for code completion, SQL query generation, debugging, and documentation automation. Our section 5 is for AI for business and data analysis, where we will implement AI solutions for customer feedback analysis, financial report analysis, and AI powered news summarization. Now, each project will follow a step by step approach, including first problem definition, then problem implementation with code walkthroughs, testing and optimization, and deploying the AI solution. So, what's next? Now that you understand the course structure, objectives, and prerequisites, let's move forward with installing DeepSeek AI and running your first test model. Setting up DeepSeek AI. DeepSeek AI is a powerful open source AI model that enables various NLP applications such as text summarization, content generation, and chatbot development. In this particular video, we will install, configure, and run DeepSeek AI on your local machine. Now, first, let's look at the system requirements. Before installing DeepSeek AI, ensure your system meets the following requirements, and these are the minimum requirements. For operating system, you would need Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. Your RAM size should be 8 GB or higher. Your disk space should be 10 GB plus for model storage mostly. Python version 3.8 or above, and you might need GPU, which is optional in this case because it's recommended for faster inference. Next, let's look at installing DeepSeek AI locally. Now, DeepSeek AI can be run locally using Ollama, a tool designed to manage and run large AI models efficiently. You might have it or might not. I'm going to show you in my step 1 of how to install Ollama, and I'll show it how to install for Mac OS, Linux, and for Windows. And after installing, you'll verify if Ollama is running, and then step 2 will be to download and install DeepSeek AI, and then step 3 will be to run DeepSeek AI locally. So let's go ahead, and just to give you a little bit of reference, if you don't have Python or if you're new to Python, we have a video already after this video on how to do a little bit of Python. But here you can go to python.org, go to downloads, and download Python. The latest version is 3.13.1 at the time of this recording. You can install it for Windows, Linux, Mac OS depending on which system you're running. I'm on Mac OS, so I'll probably show you Mac OS, but I'll also show you steps on how to do this for Windows. But anyway, here is where you can get Python. And this is the DeepSeek website, which has been popular in last few weeks. And you can go here and you can create an account and play with it, but this is not what we want. So I'm going to go directly to Ollama. Now Ollama, you can directly download from here. This is the direct version where you can click on download and you can say Mac OS, Linux, or Windows. Depending on which machine you have, you can select that. Now if you're on Linux, you can just copy this line on your command prompt or terminal and it will work perfectly fine. It will also work on Mac because it's at the end of the day Linux based. And for Windows, you have download for Windows option here, so you can download from here. I'm going to go here and download this for Mac OS. It's downloading right now, so I'm going to give it some time until it downloads. So once the download is complete, I'm going to open that folder. If you see it downloaded as ollama-darwin.zip, so I'm going to unzip it and it will have it available right here. When I click on it, it will open Ollama. I have already installed Ollama before, but it will ask me that is trying to open it and move it to applications. So I'll say move it to applications. On Windows, you don't have to do all that stuff. You can directly just open Ollama and keep it wherever you want to save it. So once Ollama is open, that means it's running. You can go ahead to your, I'm going to go ahead and quit my terminal and open it again. I'm going to go to my desktop because on my desktop, if you see, I have a DeepSeek folder where I'm going to probably keep all my projects in. If I go to DeepSeek, I'll see there's empty right now. That's this folder right now. So I have empty and we have not created anything. Here I can check Ollama version. It says Ollama version is 0.57, which means my installation is good. I have Ollama running and that's perfect. Also, another way of checking Ollama is you can actually go to a browser, open a new window and say localhost colon 11434. That's the port that Ollama is running on. Ollama is nothing but a local server, so it will run at a particular port. Try this out and let me know how it goes. If you have any issues running this, let me know in the messages and I'll get back to you. But again, once this is running and if you have Ollama version showing up, that means you're all set up. Our next step is to download and install DeepSeek AI. Now you can go inside the Ollama website and search for DeepSeek R1. There you go. And in future, if it changes again, I'm just showing you how I got to this from here. And you can download whichever you want from here. Another option is I can just copy this and run this on my local computer. I can just say, or else I can say Ollama pull DeepSeek -R1. And it will download it. It might take a little bit time because 4.7 GB, so it might take a little bit time the first time you run it, but the second time it should be much faster, like how it is. Since it's already there, it's not going to give me an issue. So this will download the model, which is 4 point some GB, 4.7 GB here. It will store it locally and use it for future runs and prepare it for immediate use. So we have DeepSeek R1 now available on our machine. I have to start the DeepSeek AI. What you can do is, which is our step number 3, is Ollama run, as it says here, Ollama run DeepSeek R1. I'm going to go ahead and first clear this out. Run Ollama run DeepSeek R1 by saying Ollama run DeepSeek R1. It will initialize it and it will give me a prompt. So this kind of launches a CLI based chat session where you can interact with the AI model, and you don't have to be online for this. You can just say something like, hello, how can I help you today? I mean, it's supposed to ask me, but I am typing that, and it says think hello, how can I assist you today? So it's asking me. I can say write a short story about DeepSeek, and it's going to go ahead and, okay, so user asked to write, it's going to tell me what it's thinking about, and it's under the think tags, as you can see, and it's kind of writing stuff. It's similar to if you go here to DeepSeek and I'll say start now, and here I say write a short story, and it'll go ahead and write a short, think about it, and that's where it's thinking, and write a short story for me. Let me go back here, and as you can see, it thought about it, and it says, sure, here's a short story about DeepSeek, and it said in a bustling area of DeepSeek city, and gave me that story. So there you go, that's what we have. I can just say /by and close this, and congratulations, you have successfully installed DeepSeek AI locally, and it's available for you locally to run it. Now, next step, let's go ahead and check it out. Running your first test prompt. Now let's test DeepSeek AI by sending it a text summarization request. We already ran and saw that it gave me a story, but let's talk about summarization. So first, run the DeepSeek AI in your CLI mode, which you already know. That's what we're going to do. Second step is enter a sample prompt. That's what we will be doing. So I'm going to go ahead here and clear this out. Now again, if you remember, to run Ollama, you can just, or run DeepSeek in Ollama, you can say Ollama run DeepSeek R1. That is our first step, which is run DeepSeek AI in CLI mode. Our next step is I want it to summarize the text. So I'm going to say summarize the following text, and I'll say artificial intelligence has transformed the world by automating tasks, improving decision making, and enabling new possibilities in healthcare, finance, and education. I'll press enter, and it's going to go ahead, think about it. It's going to say speak out loudly of what, or think out loudly of what I have provided, and it will take that and it will summarize it to me in a few seconds. And there you go, it's a summary. Artificial intelligence has transformed the world by automating tasks, improving decision making process, and creating new opportunities in healthcare, finance, and education. Now you can try more of this, bigger text, whatever you have, and try to make sure that you can summarize that using DeepSeek R1. So there you go, we have successfully done that. Now to quit it, you just say /by, and I'm out of it. Next, let's look at how to integrate DeepSeek AI into Python. Now to use DeepSeek AI in Python, we'll send requests via the Ollama API. So first, to make request in Python, if you have built any projects before, request is the library used to make an API call. And as I mentioned earlier, DeepSeek is running locally on this particular port, which means I can make a request to this URL. So first, for that, I have to make sure, let me clear this out, and install request. If you have never used it before, you'll probably have to install this. So I'm going to say request. If it's available, it will be pretty quick. It will say requirement already satisfied. If not, it will download it for you. Next, I'm going to clear it out. I'm going to go ahead inside my DeepSeek folder, and kind of open this inside here, Sublime Text, or whichever ID you prefer. You right click. I'm going to create a new file, and I'll save this as deepseek.py. That's the Python files extensions. If you don't know, that's how you do it. Now next step is I'm going to go ahead step by step and write a particular piece of code. And I'll start with importing request library that we just installed. The request library is imported here, which allows us to send HTTP requests to interact with the API. If you don't have request installed, again, you know what you do. Go ahead into your terminal and say pip install request. Next, define API URL. Ollama runs locally on port 11434, which we have seen. If you remember this, we have opened it and it's running on that particular port. So I'll get that URL. For that, I'll say Ollama URL equal to http://localhost:11434/API/generate. That's where the API is available for us, the Ollama URL. This URL is where the API, as I mentioned, Ollama, is running locally on port 11434. Now, Ollama is an open source LLM framework that allows you to run models on your local machine. So let's go ahead to next step, which is I'm going to create a function called as query DeepSeek and pass it a prompt as a parameter. Now this function query DeepSeek prompt takes a text input, which is prompt, that we want to process using the AI model. Next, we'll create the payload. So payload is the data that we'll be sending, and that payload has a model. So this is a Python dictionary payload here, which is created to store the data to be sent to the API. The I'm saying model is DeepSeek R1. This specifies the AI model being used, which is DeepSeek R1 again. The prompt is the prompt that user has requested. This text that will be processed by the model, which we have entered here before in the prompt. Next, we have the stream equal to false. This means the response will be returned in a single batch rather than streamed in real time. Our next step is let's get the response. So once we make the request, which we are going to do here, we say request.post. We pass the Ollama URL where we want to, and the payload is JSON equal to payload. Now the request.post, again, function sends an HTTP post request to Ollama URL with the payload as the JSON. Now the response from the API is stored inside this response variable. So when I make a request to that, whatever text it generates will be saved in here. Next, let's go ahead and process the API response. So I'm going to say if response.statuscode equal to 200. Now status code is more like what happened when I made a request. Well, how did the server respond back? If it gave me 200 response status code, which means everything was fine and it worked as expected. If it's 404, which means this URL that I've given was not found on the server. If it's any of the 500 errors, which means there was some problem somewhere. So I am looking for only status code 200. I'm going to say response.json.get response no output generated if is equal to 200. Else I'll say return f error. So I'm making a f string here saying response.text based on what the error text was. So that's what I'm specifying. Again, the response, the status code is checked here where I'm checking if it's 200, which is okay. Convert the response to JSON format and which is response.json, and retrieve the value of the response key inside the response. If the response is missing, it will return no output generated, because what if it's empty from the, so that's when no output generated is coming back. And if there's an error, the error message response.text is returned and given back to this particular program or whoever called this function. So let's go ahead and test this function. So I'm going to create kind of a test the model by saying test prompt equal to summarize the impact of AI business is profound, enabling automation and enhancing decision making. And then I'll say print query. I'll call this query DeepSeek function and pass this prompt to it. Now in this particular case, we have created a test input with a request to summarize a particular sentence. Now this function query DeepSeek test prompt is called and the output is printed out. So whatever it returns back, either an error or the actual response will be printed out to me. So now let's go ahead and save this. Go to my command prompt or terminal, and here I'll say show me what we have. We have this file which we have created, and I'll say python deepseek.py, run it. It's going to call that URL. It's going to go ahead and generate text, and it's going to get me back the data. So it took a few seconds, and then because again DeepSeek needs to think about it, summarize it, and it gave me the value that it thought about, and this is the summarization based on the sentence that we have provided. So there you go, we were successfully able to call this API and get data back. I hope you were able to follow along and get this out. If not, let me know right now in the messages and I'll get back to you with the issues you're facing. Now again, just to summarize, we went and installed the required packages, which was request. Next, we created a Python script and we ran the script and it was working successfully. But again, if you face issues while setting up DeepSeek AI, here are some of the common fixes. First, issue can be command not found Olama, where you have to ensure Olama is installed and added to the path. If it's not, just go ahead and restart your system. Sometimes that helps too. Next problem that we'll see is Olama run DeepSeek R1 hangs. Restart the terminal and try again. This is the most common thing that has happening to me. Next one is DeepSeek AI is slow. In this particular case, you'll have to upgrade your RAM or GPU or reduce your model size, because as you saw on the website, if you remember from DeepSeek here, or not here, sorry, inside here, you see there's different versions. You can go to a smaller version. Also, it will be good, but bigger the data it is trained on, better the model will be. Again, smaller doesn't help. If you're just learning, smaller doesn't hurt. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about connection refused on the API call. Now, when you're calling that API in the code that we have, ensure that Olama is running by saying Olama run DeepSeek R1 on your command prompt. Make sure that it's running. So now, what's next? Now that DeepSeek AI is set up and running, we are ready to build the AI-powered applications. Our next chapter will cover the AI-powered text summarizer, which will summarize documents with AI. Now, if you need any help with Python, there's a video I have uploaded which will help you with understanding Python in more detail. But anyways, we're going to jump into the next chapter and then I'll go over step by step for each and every code that I write. Summarizing long documents is a crucial task in NLP. In this video, we will build our project 1, which is an AI-powered text summarizer using DeepSeek AI to generate concise summaries of any input text. The use cases of AI-powered text summarizations include news summarizations, where we can quickly extract key points from articles, legal document summarization, reduce lengthy contracts to essentials, medical report summarization, where we can extract vital information from medical reports, business reports and research papers, where we can generate executive summaries, content summarization, where we can condense long blogs and articles. So if you see, there's so many use cases for them. Now, how text summarization actually works? Now, there are two main types of text summarization techniques. First one is called extractive summarization, which selects the most important sentences directly from the text. And then we have abstractive summarization, which generates a new summary using AI language generation. Now, DeepSeek AI uses abstractive summarization, meaning it creates a concise human-like summary rather than simply extracting key sentences. Let's look at setting up the AI summarizer. So first step is to install the dependencies. We'll go ahead and install request and Gradio if you don't have it. Next, we're going to build a Python script. We'll call it textsummarizer.py and add some code in there and run it. That's our step 3, which is running the script and see if it works perfectly for us. So let's go ahead, and if you see, I've created a project 1 folder here which has nothing right now. I've also opened that project 1 in my IDE over here, and I'll make sure that I am in my project 1 folder here, which doesn't have anything inside right now. So I am in my project 1 folder here, and this is my project 1. And as I mentioned, I'll go ahead and create a new file here. I'll call this text_summarizer.py. That's my Python file. So I'll add some code here. But before doing that, let's go ahead and follow our step 1, which is pip install request and Gradio. So this will go ahead and it will quickly install my two libraries. One was for request. Request, again, as I mentioned earlier, is a library for making HTTP request. Example, calling API, downloading web pages. In this particular case, we'll call that API where our DeepSeek is running or Olama is running. That's why we need that. Next, Gradio is a library for building easy to use web interfaces for machine learning models and applications. And that's why we have that available. And we'll be creating a web interface for this particular project. Our next step is go ahead and write our Python script here. So I'm going to go ahead and write the code here. We'll start with importing the required libraries which we just installed. First one, request. Next one will import Gradio as gr. So the request, as I mentioned, request is used to send HTTP request to communicate with DeepSeek AI API. Next, our Gradio is used to create a web-based UI for summarization function, and you'll be looking at it soon. So next is defining the API endpoint. So I'm going to create the DeepSeek API endpoint which is running on Ollama. So Ollama URL HTTP localhost on port 11434/API/generate. Now if you have not seen the previous video and you directly jumped here, I would recommend you to see that first to know how we created this. So again, this is the Ollama URL which stores the API endpoint where the DeepSeek AI model is running locally, and the API listens on port 11434 which is default for Ollama. Our next step is to define the summarization function. So I'm going to create a summarization function like before. We'll say summarize text, and it will take text as an parameter which it will have to summarize. The function will send this text to DeepSeek AI API and return the AI generated summary. So I'm going to say here uses DeepSeek AI to summarize a given text, kind of like a comment for me to know what this function does in future. Next, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the API request payload. For the payload, I'll be using model, which is DeepSeek R1. This specifies which AI model to use. In our case, is DeepSeek R1. If you want to change this to some other model that Ollama supports, you can run that too. Next is our prompt, where I'm saying summarize the following text, and I pass the text here. This kind of the prompt defines the instruction DeepSeek AI should follow, which in our case is summarize. Next, I'm going to say stream equal to false. Now this tells the API to return the full response at once rather than streaming it in chunks. So that's what this does. If you say stream equal to true, it will give you in chunks. That's not what we want. So we are setting up stream is false. Next step is let's go ahead and make that API request. So I'm going to say request.post, which sends an HTTP post request to Ollama URL with the payload, which is this payload here as JSON here. The API processes the input and generates the response and assigns it to this response variable. Next step is process the API response. Again, we're going to check if 200 okay, that's the request status code. Extract and return the AI generated summary. So for that, I'll say return response.json get. If the response is available in that response, I'll get the response which is in the key, or I'll say no summary generated if there was nothing returned back. So this is the default text if nothing is coming back inside response. Next, I'm going to say if there's an error, so else return error response text. So this will return back the error message to whoever called this function. Now let's go ahead and run a test case here. I'm going to say test summarization if name __ name equal to __ main. I'm going to say sample text is empty. I mean, this here above ensures the script only runs the test cases if executed directly, not when imported as a module. So that's why this is important here. So I'm going to go ahead and say sample text. I'm going to enter some text here. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries across the world. AI models like DeepSeek R1 enable businesses to automate tasks, analyze large data sets, and enhance productivity. With advancements in AI, applications range from virtual assistants to predictive analytics and personalized recommendations. And I'm going to close this sample text variable here. This contains the paragraph about AI which will be summarized. So next, let's go ahead and call the summarization function and print the output. For that, I'm going to first say print summary text, and I'll say print. I'll call the function the summarize text and pass this sample text to it, and it will give me the data back. So I'm going to save this project here, go back here, clear this out, and if you see now I have the text summarization. So I'm going to say Python text _ summarizer.py. I'll run that. It will run the project and give me the summary text calling that Ollama URL. Now again, we didn't use Gradio IO, which we'll be using in the next section in a little while. But while it's doing this, or there you go, it gave me the data. Just to go over the summary of what the script does, it connects to DeepSeek AI running on localhost 11434 via request. It formats the text as a summarization prompt and then sends it to the API. It retrieves the AI generated summary and returns it and plays the results right over here when the script is run. So again, this confirms that everything is working fine. If I go back here, if you see the summary is provided right here, it will also show me what it was thinking while it was summarizing based on the text that I have provided, and we have the summary right here. Next step is building a web app for Summarizer. Now we have Gradio, so why not use it? Now let's build a simple web app using Gradio so users can interact with the Summarizer via a web interface instead of the command prompt. Like if I give this application to my mom, she'll not understand what to do. So why not give her a web interface? For that, I'm going to first go ahead and create a Gradio interface, and then I'll run the web app. So just the change that I have to do in the existing project, I'm going to go here. I am going to remove this bottom part here, text summarization, or I'll just go ahead and comment it out. And then here, I'm going to add some code first to create a Gradio interface. I'm going to go ahead and say interface equal to gr.interface. This is how you create it, and it needs bunch of different, so this interface, the web interface needs 5 different parameters. First is fn equal to summarize text, which function of this particular is to summarize text. Inputs that I'll give is need is gr text box lines equal to 10, and placeholder over there should be enter text to summarize. Next, outputs equal to gr.text box, another text box on the right side to show me the output of the summarized text. Next, I'm going to say title equal to AI powered text summarizer. Description, I'll say enter a long text and DeepSeek AI will generate a concise summary. I'll close this, and that will create our interface. That's it. So let's go ahead and launch the web app by saying if underscore underscore name underscore underscore main app. I launch it by saying interface.launch. I'll save this, and now let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to clear this out. Run it again. Python text summarizer. It's going to run on a particular web domain. There you go. It gave me the URL here. This is where it's running. Open my browser and open this URL, and if you see, I have this text input and output. Now if I make it bigger, it will come next to each other. Again, it's a little bit mobile friendly too. It does help with everything. And if you see, this is our input. As you see, this input text box lines equal to 10, and I have my output which is available right here. Now I can take the same text that I have here and add this here, make sure that it doesn't have those comment stuff. Let's see, so I have my text added here, and I'm going to say submit. It's going to go and call that API and give me the data back, the summarized text right here. So all the whatever we did in command prompt here earlier, this thing we are doing it through a web interface. Now if I give this to my mom, she probably will be able to understand that, oh, this is an AI powered text summarizer. I need to enter a long text here, and when I submit it, I'll get the data back or summarized text back right here, even though she'll not understand this. But again, this kind of gives you an idea of how we can create a web interface so quickly with a few lines of code, like 6 lines of code. We were able to create a web interface right here. Our next step is to enhancing the summarizer. Now, bunch of things that we can do. We can first do is adjusting the summary length. So if you remember here, what we did was we said summarize the following text. Now instead of summarizing the following text, what I can do is I can change this to, let me just get rid of this and say summarizing the following text in 1 sentence. So I'll get just 1 sentence. Another thing that you can do is if you want a detailed like with bullets and all that stuff, I can change this, and instead of saying 1 sentence, I can say summarize the following text in 3 bullet points. So that's another thing I can do. You can do also multi-document summarization. You can read files and then add those files. So multi-document summarization, what you can do is you can have the, okay, I think I did here. What you can do is, let's say I have a combined underscore text equal to doc1 plus, so I have one doc and I want data from another doc /n/n, and here I'll say plus doc2. So I kind of provide these documents as input parameters, and then I give and I call the summarized text based on this combined text that I have based on different documents. Another thing that I can do is I can enhance the prompt engineering. There's different styles which can improve summarizations. If you know about prompt engineering, there's casual and technical. So if I want to create a casual style, I can say here, you can remove this and say explain this text in simple word. This is more on a casual style. Next thing, if you want to do it more technical, what you can do is you can say generate a technical summary. So this will give me more of a technical summary based on whatever I have provided as input. Again, these are different ways to make your make experience better based on who your users are. So I would say just try those out and let me know how it goes. Next, let's talk about deploying the summarizer. Now, you've created the app, it's on your local machine, but what if you want to deploy using Flask or Fast API? So once tested, you can deploy it using either Flask, Fast API, or Streamlit for production. These are different ways developers are doing it. I'm going to show you one of them. I'm going to show you how to do deployment using Fast API. So for this, we'll follow 3 steps. First, we'll install the Fast API. Then we'll create an app file for that API, and then we can run the API. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead here, create another. Inside my project file itself, I'm going to create app.py. Again, these files are available to you in the resources folder, so you can get them in the video resources. I'm going to kill this here, clear it out, and here first I'll say pip install Fast API and UVCon. So these are the ones that help us kind of deploy these apps. So once I have that installed, I already have them installed. Next step is to create this app.py, and here I'll write some code based on what we have learned till now. So first, for the Fast API, the library that we have installed, let's go ahead and import that. I'm going to say import Fast API from the Fast API library that we just installed. Next, I'm going to say import request. We need that. I create an app called and use the Fast API in class, and then call this will create my Fast API object here. Then I'll say Olama URL. This is the URL that I have which will give me kind of in localhost 11434 my models will be available here. Next, I'm going to say app.post summarize. So if you call this API in the summarize route, I'm going to say summarize text. This is the function that I need to run, and this is the text that you need to pass. And I'll say payload model DeepSeek R1 prompt summarize whatever text is passed to me, and I'll say stream is false. Next, I'll say response equal to request.post Olama URL JSON payload. This will make the request and get the response. And then finally, I'll say return response.json get response if the response is available, or say no summary generated. Now we can run this by saying UVCon app reload. This is how you can run this application. I'm going to copy this, save this file, go here and run this application. Now it's running here. Now this needs a post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open Postman, create a new request. If you don't have Postman installed, you can install it. This is just to test APIs. I'm going to write that URL there, and if you remember the route, it's summarized. So I'm going to say summarize, and it's a post request. So because as I mentioned, it's a post at summarize at this URL, and I'll say key. As you see, I need text. I'll say give me a story about something. Actually, I said summarize, so it will try to summarize this. So I'm just going to leave it as it is and say send and see how it works. You can give some text here and it will summarize that text. So it's calling that API, which in here kind of making a call to Olama, and it will give me the response based on what Olama server is giving back as an API. And you can deploy this on anywhere that you want. But again, you'll also have to make sure that you deploy the actual model which will generate stuff. And again, there you go. It is thinking about it. Okay, it's thought about it, and then I think this is. I'll be happy to create a short story for you. Could you clarify what kind of story would you like? So it summarized it. At the same time, it gave me some text based on it is smart enough to know what I was looking for based on this question that I passed, and it's asking me additional questions related to this context. So I hope you were able to go through this, and just to now summarize this particular video, we built an working AI powered text summarizer. We created a web app for summarization. We explored prompt tuning and multi document summarization, and we learned how to deploy the summarizer as an API. Now, next chapter is AI based text generation, automating content creation. So, stay tuned.